I went back into the archives today and I found a wonderful episode. This is a boiled forced meat cabbage. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Today I will be preparing a forced or a farced cabbage. Thanks for joining us today on 18th Century Cooking with James Townsend and Son. Today's recipe comes from the 1747 second edition of Primitive Cookery. Now, the Primitive Cookery that we sell in our catalog is the first edition. Unfortunately, this recipe is not in the one we carry, but this recipe in the cookbook is called, it's called a cabbage pudding. But many times, making the dish in the manner that we're going to make it in is also referred to as a forced or sometimes a farced cabbage. So let's get started. So let's start out with our cabbage here. We need to use about half the cabbage, but we also need to save some really big outer leaves to use when we're putting this together. So I'm going to cut this at the bottom to release some of these outer leaves. And they don't have to be perfect, but try to pick nice, good ones that don't have any nastiness from the outside. You might want to take the very outer ones off if they're dirty. So you want enough leaves to make a full sort of cabbage head when we're done. So you need at least 2 good half leaves. We're going to save those back, and now we're just going to cut this cabbage in half and then chop it up nice and finely. I've got our lightly boiled cabbage here, or just scalded. I'm going to add it to the pot here. This recipe calls for 1 pound of chopped up veal. Today I'm using just a ground beef, a very lean ground beef. The recipe calls for an equal amount of shredded suet. I'm actually going to lower the quantity of suet in this recipe and use just a half a pound of shredded suet. We are now offering a beef suet on our website and in the future in our print catalog. It's USDA, made in the United States, grass-fed beef suet, so it's really, really good stuff. Now let's spice this. The recipe calls for mace, nutmeg, salt, and pepper. And finally, it also in the spice section talks about green gooseberries, green grapes, or barberries in season. None of those are in season. It says if you're making this in the winter, you can also add some verjuice, or in this case, since verjuice is a little hard to come by these days, you can get it online. But today I'm going to add a little bit of just plain apple cider vinegar, maybe 2 tablespoonfuls. And our final ingredient here, 3 egg yolks. You'll want to let your boiled cabbage cool down a little bit so it doesn't melt the shredded suet in your mixture. So this looks like enough to make 2 small boiled cabbage farces or 1 rather large one. I'm going to do a medium to smaller size one here, so it'll probably make enough for 2. And we're going to fill this leaf up with our mixture. The size is going to make a difference in the boiling time. There's our mount here. We're going to take a cabbage leaf and cover the top of it. If you've got some holes, you can use a second leaf here to finish up the looks of it. Now we need to put this in a pudding cloth. And that's one of the new products we've got here at James Townsend & Son. We took our natural linen fabric. We took about a 26-inch square or so, and we've got it hemmed up on all the sides, and it makes a perfect pudding cloth or a towel in the kitchen or at your campsite. This pudding or this boiled cabbage is not going to grow, so you can tie it fairly tightly. Like all boiled puddings, you want this to go into the water that's already boiling, and this is going to boil probably one this size about an hour, maybe an hour and a quarter. So let's get this into boil. Wow, this looks great. Let's cut into this and try it out. You definitely want to eat this while it's warm if you've got the suet in it, because that kind of solidifies if it's cold. The cabbage is great. It's cooked and it's nice and tender. The spices, even the nutmeg, is something you ought to try in a recipe like this. Very interesting. And that vinegar really helps bring the flavor out. This is a great recipe. You need to try it. If you're new to our channel, I want to welcome you. You can subscribe by clicking the button right up here. Also check out our related videos. Thanks so much for watching.